Good evening. Welcome to Live with Dawn Butler. And joining me on today's show, I have Councillor Nana Asante, Mayor of Harrow. Going to be asking her what it's like to be wearing a long red robe and a £2 gold chain everywhere she goes. If you want to join in the conversation today, then please do. Tweeting at Star Media Corp, at Dawn Butler Brent, hashtag Live with Dawn Butler. And if you're live streaming, www.smcorp.tv, send in an email. And if you want to call live into the studio, it's 0203 395 2095. And don't forget, we're also on Facebook, Star Media Corporation. So, Councillor Nana Asante, thank you for coming in the studio again, this time in your full regalia. So, everybody watching today, and you come with your own security because that's actually real gold that you're wearing around your neck, and it weighs £2.
That's right, so like a bag of sugar.
And gold is actually quite expensive at the moment. So it's probably worth a fair bit if that was to be melted down. That would probably solve the country's debt.
I doubt it. Harrow's not as rich as some of the other boroughs because we only became a borough in 1954. So this is not as old as some of those that go way back in time.
Yeah. So tell me, what does it mean? What does all of this mean?
Well, first of all, I've been told several times since I became mayor by those who know that I'm not wearing regalia, I'm wearing insignia. Only the Queen is regal, so only she has regalia.
Oh, I see.
And as the mayor, you're the first citizen, so you are number 2 after the Queen. So it's only the Queen who comes before you.
Oh yes. Oh, right. Okay, so when you enter the room, are people supposed to curtsy?
No, they're supposed to get up when you
supposed to get up.
It's a sign of the respect that you accord the mayor. When she goes into the room, you get up.
So only the Queen is ahead of you, and you are then the next.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
So the mayor is the first citizen, and as well, the mayor is the guardian of the Constitution, and is supposed to uphold the law in the borough.
Okay. So what does that mean exactly? How do you uphold the law?
Well, in the council chamber mainly.
Right, okay.
So you chair council meetings.
Okay.
And you're first amongst all the councillors.
Okay. So all the councillors in the borough, do they stand up when you enter the room?
They're supposed to.
Okay.
Only the Labour councillors didn't stand up at my mayor making. It was and it went down very badly with the population, which is very interesting. I didn't know that the people of Harrow cared that much. We had emails and 3-page emails complaining, etc. They now get up each time.
Okay.
But at mayor making, when there were visitors there and there were people, it was rather.
So did you have a falling out with your colleagues why they didn't stand up?
Well, I'm now independent Labour. I'm not a Labour councillor, so that didn't help. But in spite of that, mayor is supposed to be in Harrow, it's a ceremonial mayor.
Right.
So it's supposed to be above politics.
Right.
But unfortunately, they couldn't see beyond that. And when you elect a mayor, and the mayor is elected by the majority of councillors, you're supposed to elect somebody who has an independent mind. And I have a very independent mind.
Okay,
I can rule against my group if I think they're wrong.
Okay.
And you should be able to do that.
Right.
So, and you should be able to separate maybe your own ideas of what you want to happen and what you think is best for the borough.
Yeah. So for the whole year, you're basically, whilst you're carrying out your mayoral duties, you're neither Labour or Conservative or anything like that.
Exactly. I mean, whilst you're chairing meetings, you're supposed to be even-handed.
Right.
Of course, you'll always have your views, but actually you should give councillors the time to speak, and if somebody's interrupting them, you deal with them. Sometimes I feel like a mother dealing with naughty children. Honestly.
Tell us more. What's that?
Because sometimes I think some councillors forget the decorum that is expected, and they either want to speak over other people, and only one person speaks at a time. So I have to go into mother mode. I suppose as a mother of 4, I didn't realize I could just get into that, and I don't like confusion, so I'm very strict as well.
And do you have what's it called?
Gavel.
A gavel. Do you have a gavel?
Actually I don't.
Oh, okay.
But what happens is that when you go into council meetings, the mace bearer comes with a mace. And places the mace.
And what's a mace for those people that watch it?
It is like, how would I say? It's like, if you've ever seen in Parliament, it's like a big stick, because in the old days it was a weapon. and it's also gold, and it's placed in front of the dais. And whilst the mace is in place, it means the meeting is legal. So actually, if the mayor gets up and the mace is removed, they can go on talking. Nothing will.
Yeah. So it's exactly the same as Parliament, really. There's a long gold thing. That's probably worth a fortune as well, isn't it? It's a big gold thing at the front. And so when I say that means that, you know, the conversation, as you say, is legal, and
whilst
you can
the
mace is in place. And is the mace is only there when the mayor's there?
That's right.
Right.
Yeah, so it goes with the office.
And what do you do when the councillors are all misbehaving and things?
Well, you tell them to sit down. If they don't sit down, you actually stand up. When the mayor stands up, everybody has to sit down.
Right.
If they still
do you do that just for fun sometimes? You just stand up sometimes just to get everyone to go on, admit it.
No, I haven't. I haven't done that, no.
I would just stand up so everybody has to
them, yeah. No, I think it has been interesting as a year, actually. I think the times in the council chamber when things were a little rocky, were a little uncomfortable. But having said that, dealt with it. I think the part that you'll find interesting is that once in the council chamber, I think September last year, I had my 25 Conservative councillors, 25 Labour councillors colluding to suspend the Constitution.
Wow.
And it was something that actually you're not supposed to do, but they did. So they suspended the Constitution. So I must say I had fun in the end, because what I did do is when it came to the vote, I asked the public gallery to vote.
Oh, wow.
Because I said, well, since you suspended the Constitution, we can make the rules as we go along.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so that was how
wow. And did the public
They did vote.
Well, that's democracy in action.
I counted the votes, and it was interesting. The public supported the way the vote went.
Okay.
Which was interesting.
Yeah. Well, that's democracy in action, really.
It is, because exactly. Do
you get, what are the perks of being a mayor?
I think the main perk is that you get chauffeur driven around, but only to engagements.
Okay.
So I still take the bus, I still take the tube, and I still take it to do my business. But when I'm going on mayoral engagements, I get because the mace bearer is a chauffeur, he's my bodyguard, because all this that I wear is not in his custody. He looks after it. Yeah. So yes, that's the main perk.
Yeah.
And an office, a lovely parlour.
Okay. Because you don't. Because you don't have any power. So in some boroughs, they have like an executive mayor, and that mayor basically will run the council. So it has his own cabinet, and it's like the leader, but more than it's actually above the leader.
Sure.
And that's executive mayor. But as a ceremonial mayor in Harrow, as we have a ceremonial mayor in Brent, you go around basically opening buildings and kissing babies.
It's that and a little more, because you also are you're the interface between the council and the citizens. So citizens come, my casework is out of this world. People can bring you casework, they're not in your ward, and you're the mayor, they expect you to help them.
And do you do it? Do you do casework as a mayor?
Oh yes, definitely. Okay. Casework, you still do, but different mayors have different styles. I tend to be hands-on. I like to, so I do the casework. So I have a lot of casework, which comes because of the profile. And people will bring you casework. You also have visits from people wanting to understand how local democracy works. So visits from senior citizens to young kids, from schools, all sorts. So it's quite a varied role.
And so for people who don't know how local democracy works, how would you describe how it works?
Well, basically, what people should know, and I think most people know, that there are elections on the 22nd of May.
Do you think people know that?
Well, I'm hoping that most people know.
I think it's quite quiet. I mean, there's nothing on the TV about it. There's activity going on in terms of...
But not enough.
But it doesn't seem to be enough. So do people know? I mean, what is the election on the 22nd of May?
It's the local elections for your local councillors. And as mayor in Harrow, at least, what I'm doing is everywhere I go, I'm reminding people that if they haven't registered to vote, they are disenfranchising themselves. That is, they are losing the opportunity to choose their councillors. And that it's important to vote. Even if it's to let people know that you're dissatisfied satisfied.
Yeah.
So voting people out, voting the right people in, exercise your right. So I do tell people you have the opportunity to register up until the 14th of April.
Right.
After that, you can't register for these elections. So you wouldn't have a vote on the 22nd of May. So it's very important that people take that opportunity to register.
And it's actually later than it normally is.
Yes, because we have European elections as well. And you know the quirk of the British, we insist on our elections being on a Thursday. So this was the closest Thursday to when the rest of Europe is going to vote.
Right.
And so, and of course, not to waste money and have two elections, we decided to have our May local elections on the same day as the European elections.
So it's later than it would normally be.
Yes, usually it's the first week of May.
Yeah. And people think that politics doesn't matter. I mean, you're in red today. Is the robe always in red? Because red is obviously a Labour colour.
No, in the old days, red was the most expensive dye.
Okay.
And so only rich and important people wore red.
Oh.
So that was red or purple. So our robe has always been red. And if you notice, High Court judges also wear red. So this is a throwback to those days when robes were in red, because it sort of signifies importance. And in the old days, the mayor was automatically a magistrate as well.
The magistrate of the court.
Yes.
Oh, right.
So I think that stopped, I think, in the 70s.
Yeah.
You know, that because they realized that the mayor, especially ceremonial mayors, you'll be surprised, you do about 800 engagements a year.
Right.
So it's a minimum of 2 a day. So sometimes it's 4 or 5 a day.
Yeah.
And it can be very time consuming.
Yeah.
And therefore you wouldn't have the time to give to cases that will come before you.
Yeah.
And they thought it was best not to, you know, combine the roles.
Yeah. And is this real fur?
Well, I'm supposed to say it's not.
Oh, right.
But the robe dates from 1954.
Oh, my gosh.
This robe was bought.
You're quite a danger hazard walking down the road. You've got real fur, £2 worth of gold around your neck.
Exactly.
No wonder you need a bodyguard.
Absolutely. And yet, when you look at it, our insignia is not as valuable as some boroughs. We're talking about the region of £30,000.
Right.
Some boroughs are talking about 300,000.
Wow.
Yeah. So some boroughs have actually got very valuable insignia.
Wow. Wow. So where were we? We were back to the. We were talking about democracy.
Yes.
A democracy in action. I just got distracted by the bling. So we're talking about democracy in action. So okay. So keep going.
Yeah. I think democracy is important. I mean, if you look at, I don't know if you remember when Africans got the vote for the first time in South Africa, those queues. Yeah. I think it's something that some of us in politics dream of, because the turnout at local elections is about 27-40% if we are lucky, but it's usually about 30%. And I think that is very sad, because it means 70% of people are not letting anybody know what they think. But local democracy, people don't realize it rules your lives. It determines where buildings are put, where schools are put. It determines how your borough is cleaned or not. It determines quite a lot about your daily life, and therefore it is extremely important. And people only worried about it when, let's say, a pub is being built next to them and they don't want it.
They don't like it.
But they don't realize that the decision is made when you elect people. You put the right people in place and they know your feelings. They will not irritate you by putting things in the wrong place.
But then, so that means that the political colour of the parties, are what you're saying, matters.
I think beyond parties, it's about people engaging in the process. We have a number of independents, but one person stood as an independent at the ballot box and won against all the parties. And it's funny, he's got a very interesting name, James Bond.
Oh, really?
So Councillor James Bond. And he's one of my favourite councillors, a very engaged. He won. He was somebody who used to work. He still works for London Transport. And he managed to get people to come out and vote for him. So it wasn't about party politics. Party politics is what a lot of us know, and we've always worked with our party, because in a party you have the benefit of being with people who think like you. So it's easier to get your message across. But you can stand as an independent. It's about being in politics, caring about what happens. And there's a statement, I like it because it's from De Gaulle. He said, politics is too important to be left to politicians. And that sometimes is the message I want to give people, that it's everybody's business. You know, don't leave it to the political class.
And we're talking about democracy. So if you want to call in, do you think that we should have voting by text or via email? Or do you think we should even have telephone voting where you can call up and say, I want to vote for, I don't know, do call in and let us know. 0203 395 2095. And if you want to tweet in, it's at Star Media Corp, at Dawn Butler Brent, hashtag live with Dawn Butler. So, Mayor, so we were talking about political parties, and you'd said that politics is too important to be left to the politicians, and there's also a saying by Plato who says, if you don't vote somebody less intelligent than you,
run the risk of being ruled by people less intelligent than yourself.
So that I think will get people voting possibly. So, but how does it feel? Because you were in the Labour Party, and then you left. And now
I can correct you there. I didn't leave.
You didn't leave.
I resigned the Labour whip with a number of councillors and asked the Labour Party to investigate some of the issues we had. Their response was to expel us from the party. This is the short version. So we were so disappointed with what we felt was a betrayal of Labour values, we formed the Independent Labour Group. Right. So now we're a registered political party, and we're hoping to fight the elections under that name.
So you're not going to be fighting this election under the Labour Party. You're going to be fighting it under the Independent Labour Group. How does that feel? How does that feel to no longer be? I mean, how does it work? Because now you're not a member of the Labour Party, but an Independent Labour Group. How does that work? How does people?
Well, basically what it is it's the same thing as it's always been. You have your vote. You can exercise your wishes and express yourself. I personally feel that being in a political party is a democratic decision worth considering. Because when you're in a party, you're in a group of people who think like you. In a way, being expelled for the party was a salutary lesson that sometimes you think you belong to a movement that thinks like you do. Obviously, there was a dissonance somewhere. So we are now in a position where we formed a party. People who think like us will join us, and hopefully we will make progress.
How do you think? What is it all about? What's the Independent Labour Group?
I'm a socialist by persuasion, so I'm very much on the left. I find conservatives a weird lot. I talk to them, I get on with them, but I just find their way of looking at the world is very odd. For me, the world is about social justice. It's about, you get into politics to make a difference, to change the status quo, which has always been in favor of those with money, those with power. That's the way of the world wherever you go. And with socialists, we're trying to enact equality, whether it's gender equality, racial equality. Those are the values that drive me.
How do your views and values differ from Labour, Conservative and Lib Dems?
Okay, I would say that Labour, in my experience, talks the talk but doesn't walk it. That's how I would characterize it now. And it's taken me this long to realize it. Because for me, by their fruits you will know them. How you behave in a crisis demonstrates what you truly believe. If it's just about not dealing with issues, to me that is dangerous. With the Conservatives, they are all...
Explain that a bit more. So how they...
Yeah, I'm talking about the recent experience I had with the Labour Party. If the Labour Party truly believes in social justice, as it's always been advertised, as it was founded, when a problem was brought to them, they would have done us the courtesy of investigating.
Oh, so internally, so internally as opposed to their policies.
I would say if you can't, how would I say, you can't put your policy, your own constitution, because I think the Labour Party constitution is one of the best, the Labour Party rules. If you can't obey your own rules, what guarantee do we have that those policies you're talking about, you actually put them into practice? You'll ditch them at the first problem. You have to show that you've got integrity and consistency. That is my disappointment. That's why I say a betrayal of Labour values, because those are the values I stand by.
And how about the Conservatives and the Lib Dems?
I find it's funny, the Lib Dems, and my apologies to those who might not like my description, I find the Lib Dems are like a flag. They go with the wind. That is a description, and it's a shorthand form of how I don't see them being clear where they stand. So for me, that's the Lib Dems, which is why I've never considered being a Liberal Democrat. With the Conservative Party, I think their view of the world is about it's like the survival of the fittest. I don't think they actually, and of course it's a broad church. You find people who are more on the left of the Conservative Party, but I find that the Conservatives have a view of the world where those on top get on. The others can be trampled upon. They don't recognize that there can be structural inequalities that make it hard for people to climb out of the pit they find themselves in. For example, at the moment, the only thing they can see is money and austerity, and let's cut. That is not my view of the world. I look at it that after the war, I think the deficit was much bigger. We still had the NHS.
45.
Exactly. We still came in with the NHS. We still came in with council housing. Where there's a will, there's a way. What I find very interesting is they say there's no money, but if they wanted to go to war, they'll find the money. You know, so I find that unacceptable. So it's about their philosophy.
They say there's no money, but you know, in the recent floods, and money's no object.
But we shouldn't have had those floods if they had invested.
Exactly. So if you want
penny wise, pound foolish.
If you want to find the money, you can find it.
And so it's about how we put our priorities. It's about how we spend. We should not have fettered or shackled the Environment Agency. They should have done what needed to be done. If we're building in floodplains, then we need to have flood defenses. When you look at Holland, they've claimed land from the sea. So it's a low-lying country, and therefore they put in measures to make sure they don't get flooded. I think it's very, very silly to have so-called cut and
it's as you say, it doesn't make any sense. So parties are important, and parties matter in
but some
politics.
people prefer to be independent, and I think there's value in that as well. If you're independent, you have more work to do, because you have to imagine in every ward, and that is that's the smallest area. Councillors represent wards. In every ward, there are about 4,000 houses, and imagine you're on your own. You have no party behind you, no friends as it were, and you have to go and campaign to get people to vote for you. Being in a political party gives you, like a political family, gives you people. But of course, there are some people who have large families, they have lots of friends, and therefore can do it.
Do you think that having 63 councillors in Harrow are too many?
No, if the councillor is doing the job. Sometimes we're working till 3 a.m. We're sleeping I find there are colleagues who you send an email at 3 a.m. and you get it at 1 minute past 3, you're getting a reply.
But wouldn't it be better if maybe councillors, because how much do councillors get paid?
They get an allowance of £8,000 a year.
£8,000 a year.
It is a very small amount.
So maybe would it not make more sense if you reduced the number and increased the allowance so councillors can spend more time?
Personally, I don't think so, because I think the idea of having councillors who, and if you notice, our meetings are in the evening. The idea is that councillors should be able to hold a job and still be a councillor. It's if you increase the workload, it will make it even more difficult for them to hold a job outside of council. And I think you are richer, your information, your experience outside the council helps you resolve problems within it. If not, you're cut off. You're just dealing with council things.
And people often get confused about being a councillor and being an MP. And so people would often come to me as the MP, and obviously, actually, I could deal with more, even some of the council's roles,
like school
and jobs.
Places.
I could deal with that. But what's the difference? What sort of issues are councillors supposed to deal with?
Councillors deal with your everyday life. So, for example, things like care for your elderly parents. They deal with things like schools for your children. So, councillors deal with local business. So, things to do with planning within the local area. MPs, on the other hand, deal with national issues. So, for example, immigration. They deal with things to do with changing the law, making things better for us as a country. So, it's quite different roles. In a sense, I'll say MPs are the strategic people. They think they deal with the big picture, and councillors deal with the detail, the everyday things that affect our lives.
How do you become a councillor? Because there'll be lots of people watching, and as you say, I'm sure there's people, as we were talking about, you know, how to modernise how we vote and things. But, you know, how do you become a councillor?
You become a councillor by standing for election. That's the short version. And basically you need 10 people in that ward to sign a piece of paper to say, I would like this person to stand. So you need those 10 to sign.
So you only need 10 people in a ward?
Yes.
And how many people generally are there in a ward?
8,000.
So out of 8,000, so you need
to be a candidate.
To be a candidate,
that
you just
makes
need
you
just
a candidate.
over 1%.
Yeah,
you need 10.
You just need those 10. So those 10, and it's not that easy because you have to get 10 people to actually sign, 10 people on the voters register to say they want you to be a candidate. And then you stand for election with whoever is standing, independents, party members. And on that day, for example, on the 22nd...
Do you have to pay a deposit?
Not for local council. Local council, you stand... what it is that you, in order to get your message across, you might have to spend some money in printing leaflets and telling people, this is who I am, this is what I'll do if you elect me. And that is where the cost comes in. And then on the date of the election, people go in and vote, or before if they've got a postal vote. And then you find out whether they say yes or no.
Who can apply? So the 10 people, you get your name on a list, and then all the 8,000 people, like on the 22nd of May, all the 8,000 people have a chance to vote.
Absolutely.
And if you get, on average, maybe 1,000, just over 1,000 votes, you should win?
About 2,000 votes.
About 2,000? That's quite high. I think in Brent it's fewer than that. But so between 1,000 and 2,000 votes, you could become a councillor.
Absolutely.
If you get those people to vote for you.
Quite.
So there's probably a lot of people thinking, no, is that all? So it is possible for people to do that. Okay.
But you need a lot of passion and excitement to do it because it's hard work.
It's hard work.
Convincing people to vote for you. So you must be passionate about making a difference and thinking that, for example, if you've ever come across difficult council officers and thinking that I need to change that, that's to drive you to wanting to be a councillor. If you've ever seen things that are going wrong, like people not getting school places, and you want to make life easier, you should want to become a councillor.
Do we need more women and African Caribbean
Definitely,
people?
I would say we do need more women, we do need more Africans, we do need younger people, and we do need more...
Is it something for younger people to do, though? If you're working till 3 o'clock in the morning, really? Haven't they got better things to do with their time?
Because actually you can change the way business is done. The reason sometimes we're working till 3 in the morning, I'm sorry to say not every councillor pulls their weight. So you're carrying sometimes more than you should.
So how can you get rid of a councillor that's not pulling their weight?
It's the people. They need to not vote for them.
But how do they know? Because some people won't know. Because if you've never had cause to use the services of a councillor, how do you know if a councillor's good, bad, indifferent?
Well, if you want to know, you'll be able to find out. You'll find the councillors, if, for example, if you're interested, and you should be, in how your borough is run, even if you attend a meeting, even one meeting a year, you will have a flavour of who's working, who isn't.
But we had a councillor in Brent, for instance, who moved to Brighton. Didn't resign.
So he couldn't have been doing his job.
Still continued claiming his allowance for almost a year.
Yeah, and that's an example of somebody who, having said that, we've just been talking about being modern and tweeting a vote or voting by email. You can do a bit, because a lot of casework comes by email. So you can do casework by email. And if you know the area well enough, even Brighton is about an hour away.
Is that a good enough excuse?
No,
are you
supposed to?
Are you supposed to walk the streets of your local ward?
It is. You don't necessarily walk the streets. A lot of the work you do is not walking the streets, and every councillor works differently. Some people are on the ward all the time. Others are in contact with their residents by other means, and that's the way the residents prefer it. I have residents who hate it when you come to their door. They just don't like it. They don't mind inviting you, but they don't like you coming and knocking on their door. They'd rather ring you, email you. That's how they want to interact. So it is a possibility. I'm not saying in this case.
So how about your surgeries? You have to physically be there for your surgeries.
Yes, but the surgeries are poorly attended. I remember as a Labour councillor, you can, half the time you're sitting in surgeries for the time, nobody turns up. So it means even, sometimes we have to rethink it. How do people want to interact with us?
So are you saying that councillors should sit and wait for people to come, like if not in a surgery, that you wait for people to contact them, and so councillors shouldn't go out there and
No, I didn't say that at all.
People?
I didn't say that at all, because councillors do go out. I go out and meet my residents. I interact with them. If I think there's a campaign that's important. Right now we have one around the high fares. If you take public transport, you know that the fares have gone through the roof. So we have a campaign around that. That means I contact residents to tell them, will you sign this petition? So there are ways in which we interact, and that's why I said you need passion to get into politics. You need to care about the way things are. You need to want to change things, and that was what will give you the energy.
Do you think you could do a councillor's job in Neasden when you live in Brighton?
I think if the trains work, I'm just being a devil's advocate here. I'm saying that it isn't impossible. You can if you want to.
What's the criteria for standing as a councillor? Can anybody stand for a councillor in any area?
No, you either have to live in an area or work in an area.
Ah, well then there you go.
Yeah, but it's live or work. So has the person got work interests?
No, because they moved.
Yes, but having moved doesn't mean you're not working. You know, for example,
if
you're
a
a company
and work in Brighton.
If you're a company director, you see, you have to know the criteria on which the person became. I'm just saying.
So once you've become a councillor in an area, unless you're voted out, you're a councillor.
You are. You're elected for 4 years.
For 4 years.
Yes.
So if anybody wants to change that, what they have to do is get involved.
Of course. Then you can change it. If you don't think it's right, change it. But the rules are there, and people work according to rules that exist. If you don't like the rules, get involved and help change it.
Well, I mean, the situation which was in Brent was actually outrageous, because none of his constituents could contact him because he was uncontactable. And I think that and it's quite serious, because if people are interested in becoming a councillor, they have to know that it is a lot of work.
It is work.
So you can't just say, right, I'm a councillor, you get elected, and then you bugger off and you're never seen again until election time, because it's that kind of thing that gives politicians a bad name.
Absolutely.
Because, you know, you're always making excuses for why they're never around, or why they're not at a surgery,
or why they don't answer emails.
And why they don't answer emails, or they don't answer the phone. And if people are not coming to your surgeries, then you go out and meet the people.
Absolutely, I agree with that.
It has to be, you know, otherwise don't do it. So I think it's quite a serious message that has to go out there. So we're coming up to the end of the show. So what do you want to, in your very plush gown and real gold chain, what are the
symbols around it?
Yeah.
The symbols around it recreate our Borough motto, our Borough coat of arms.
Okay.
It tells you about Harrow. This is Harrow in miniature. It tells you the history of Harrow.
Okay.
We were untouched by the plague, so we've got the goddess Hygeia.
Harrow was untouched by the plague. Really?
Yeah, lucky us.
Wow.
Yeah, so down all
how can that work? How could you be untouched by the plague?
There were no plague deaths. Just that.
Really?
But remember that at that time Harrow was mainly forest.
Mice and forest?
It was forest. There were just it was sort of cut off. Remember, London has grown.
Okay.
There was a time when most of Harrow was forest.
Okay.
And quite a different place to live.
Okay.
So that was one of the things, that Harrow was untouched by the plague.
Okay. So we've got a quick call to squeeze in before we finish the show. Hi, good evening. Welcome to the show.
Hello, hi, good evening. Just wanted to give my opinion in terms of vote by text messages, and I think I really agree with it, because I think many young people who doesn't turn up to the voting poll or things like that, I think that will be very good for them, and you know, the people who's working and who's not able to attend, and I think it's the 21st century. I think so we need to move on, I think, with voting by text message and other methods.
Very good point.
That's a good point. How would we make sure that it was secure, though? So how, you know, you might have, so I know people that have got 2 or 3 pay-as-you-go phones. How would we make sure that it's secure so they can't vote 3 times?
I think they shouldn't actually accept it by pay-as-you-go phones, and the people who's on contract, who knows that, you know, this person, this number is for this person who lives in this address, can vote. And I think that's the best way of ensuring it, because otherwise, you know, people who's not even British will vote. And I think they should have a system in place in order to secure people's vote. You know, it's not like it's not a joke.
Is that fair then? That only if you've got a contract phone can you vote? Is that fair? Because not everyone can afford to pay £25 a month contract.
I think those who can't afford it they've got the option of going to the poll. They could go to the station and actually vote there. Other people, I think they do vote by post. I'm not sure about it, but I think, people could vote by other means. But if you have a contract, and I think you'll be able to set up yourself, definitely there's a method of setting up your name. They'll give you a reference number or something like that, unique number that is actually for you, and then you could use that number in order to vote. So one vote by one text message, yes or no, and I think that might count it.
So another option.
Yes.
Wow, well, thank you very much for your call today. Made some very good, powerful points. Let's hope we move things forward. Thank you. So that was lovely to squeeze that in right at the end of the show. So I think, probably we're not going to do it for this election, and maybe not for the next general election, but probably in time,
it's something we should explore.
It is something we should explore. So the Mayor of Harrow, Councillor Nana Asante, thank you very much
for
coming in the show today and giving us a whole history of what it is to be the first citizen and the mayor. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you.
Wish you all the best for the next election.
Thank you.
And we'll see you again soon.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all for watching. Do please tune in again next week. You can continue the debate on the live stream www.smcorp.tv or via Facebook, Star Media Corporation, and we'll see you for another exciting show next week. Thank you and good night.